Hi, Lisa K. Donner here with Liberty Nation. And to no one's surprise, President Trump has nominated Amy Coney Barrett. Legal Affairs editor Scott D. Cosenza is with me today. He covers the Supreme Court extensively for Liberty Nation. Scott, let's begin with a few facts about Ms. Barrett's career.
So she basically has spent her entire career outside of a small stint in private practice and a more recent stint on the federal bench as a law professor. She was had a couple of prestigious law clerkships immediately after law school, including with Justice Scalia. And then she went to work as a law professor, I think at one of the D.C. schools, and then quickly off to Notre Dame, where she spent the entirety of her career before she was nominated to the federal courts. And she's now a federal court judge on the 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals out of Chicago.
All right, so the nomination process was so bruising for Justice Brett Kavanaugh, but the stakes are higher this time. So can we expect another round of Rock'em Sock'em robots?
Oh, yes. In the worst way possible, Lisa. You know, Justice Kavanaugh replaced Justice Kennedy, and that was seen as a sort of a minor shift, if at all, in terms of the fulcrum of how the court comes down on left-right issues. And this is the exact opposite. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a stalwart, reliable vote for any kind of a left kind of decision. The hot button issues, she was almost guaranteed to vote with the left side of the political aisle. And the perception is, now we don't know if it's true, the perception is that Ms. Coney Barrett will be the opposite or mirror image of that, and she'll be a rock solid conservative vote for, you know, in matters, for instance, maybe against expansion of abortion rights, for greater expansion of Second Amendment rights, and the list goes on.
Does Barrett come to this nomination with any apparent weaknesses that Democrats might key in on?
You know, it's hard to answer the question, because what could be a strength for one candidate might be a weakness for another, and how they respond to it. I can tell you that in her confirmation hearing for the 7th Circuit seat, there were some testy exchanges between both her and Senator Dianne Feinstein and Al Franken, one over her writings about Catholic faith matters, and another about her talking to a religiously affiliated group.
Everyone on both sides brings up Roe v. Wade as the big issue. But is that topic really in play at the Supreme Court level?
Well, it's an interesting thing. So I think that the people who think that Ms. Barrett is either going to be able to, to rip Roe v. Wade, root and branch out of the law, or something else, they're mistaken, I think, because of how entrenched it is. It's 47-year-old Supreme Court precedent. It's possible that could happen, Lisa, but I think it really isn't. On the other hand, I do see this nomination fight as an extension of the Judge Bork battle, which was over Roe v. Wade. Senator Ted Kennedy, 45 minutes after Ronald Reagan announced he would like to nominate Judge Bork to replace the retiring Justice Powell, Ted Kennedy went to the Senate floor and made it out like Robert Bork was a neo-segregationist monster who wanted to turn all the rights back that Americans had had. Meanwhile, Bork was a relatively mild-mannered Yale law professor and dean who happened to have gotten a seat on the U.S. D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where he was unanimously confirmed, including by Ted Kennedy a few years prior. So that what had happened was that he might have changed the balance of the court against Roe, and that's what started the whole Borking. And I think that the legacy through Kavanaugh's appointment, and sadly perhaps continuing on with Ms. Barrett's, that's the legacy.
Would you consider Barrett a strict constitutionalist on the order of the late Antonin Scalia? Because let's face it, that's what conservatives are looking for. They feel like they got burned with Roberts and definitely with Souter. So that's what they're looking for.
It's hard to tell. These things are best decided with hindsight, looking back on a judge's career and how they've ruled. And the very nature of appeals court judges at the middle appeals court level is to apply Supreme Court precedent, not develop their own. And so the answer is perhaps. And anybody who tells you they know for sure one way or another, I think, is giving you wishful thinking rather than rock solid information. I will say, Lisa, in my examining the published cases available to see where she may come out, the one thing I did notice was she came out what I think would be encouraging and a fairly strong case for gun owners or people who want advanced gun rights. And it was the case where somebody had been denied their right to keep and bear arms because they were a felon. And the person's felony was mail fraud. And they were saying, this bears no, I'm not a safety risk. And so therefore, I'm not a violent risk. And the court upheld that, the stripping of that man's rights, but Ms. Barrett dissented. And she wasn't willing to say and be so deferential to the government power. And so that was encouraging for gun rights proponents. And I think it's encouraging for me. I'm always looking for judges who try to bolster and uphold individual rights and are cautious of state power. So in that opinion, anyway, I was encouraged by her dissent.
Do you think she leans a bit libertarian?
I haven't been able to develop a strong sense of it so far, but no, I haven't discovered that yet anyway.
All right. Personally, we know that Amy Coney Barrett is a Roman Catholic, that she has 7 children, 2 adopted. Can you flesh out her life for us a little bit?
Well, it's the life of an academic. She had these prestigious clerkships, and went right into it's really the path of a Supreme Court justice. I mean,
wait a minute. The other day we were talking about it, and you said it's really rare to have a Notre Dame graduate.
Well, I was going to get into that in a second. So it's the same path as just sort of a typical path of a Supreme Court justice, with the exception of the school names. So if for a typical Supreme Court justice, it would be they went to Harvard or Yale as an undergrad and then went to perhaps the opposite for law school, okay, and then had a couple of prestigious Supreme Court clerkships and others, then a career in academia, followed by a career on a high appellate court, followed by nomination to the Supreme Court. That is a very typical path. It's a path that Ruth Bader Ginsburg followed, for instance. And the big exception here is that she went to Notre Dame for law school. And in fact, of President Trump's dozen women that he said he would choose from, the pool with which he said he would draw his candidate from, only one had a degree from Harvard or Yale. And if we look at the current Supreme Court and include Ruth Bader Ginsburg on that list, they all have at least one degree from Harvard or Yale, and some have one from both. And so I think it's a move away from the Northeast establishment culture legally and move west. There were a lot of nominees, a lot of potential nominees with Stanford and Chicago degrees. And that really does make a difference, I think, in how they'll approach their judicial philosophy.
All right. Do you think Barrett is a good choice as one who watches and covers the Supreme Court closely?
Lisa, you call me in 20 years, I'm going to have a great answer for you. At this, picking a Supreme Court justice is, it can be no easy task. And I would say even absent the political considerations, just on the judicial philosophy alone, to pick the right person, I think is just a giant task. She dots all the I's and crosses all the T's, though, of somebody who you would think, the central casting for a Supreme Court justice, with the exception of not going to one of the couple 3 law schools that these people usually come from.
All right, prediction time. Will she or will she not be confirmed?
These confirmation processes often have interesting turns, but because she was vetted probably very thoroughly for the 11th Circuit and recently, I would imagine that the one thing I would say, Lisa, that has impressed me with almost all its aspects in the Trump administration has been their judicial appointment machine, basically. And because this is another component of that machine, I'll predict that it will go well, and she will be confirmed.
Yeah, and let me just say that I think Trump had plenty of opportunity to kind of back off of Kavanaugh in the heat of that melee. and he never did. So I think she will be confirmed as well. Well, thanks, Scott, for joining us today on LNTV. You can read more about Amy Coney Barrett on LibertyNation.com as we follow the Senate confirmation hearings. I'm Lisa K. Donner. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Go deeper on the topic discussed in this video. Head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for Liberty.